Let me tell you something profound today. Change, it's the most fascinating phenomenon in life. You see, most people want their lives to be different, but they're not willing to be different themselves. Isn't that interesting? You know what I've discovered after spending decades teaching success principles? The majority of folks are waiting for something magical to happen. They're waiting for circumstances to change while they remain exactly the same. And I'm here to tell you, that's not how life works. Now, let me share with you these 5 critical signs that are screaming at you. Yes, screaming that it's time to make a big change in your life. And pay close attention because these signs, they're like those road markers on a highway. Miss them, and you might find yourself miles away from where you should be. Sign number 1, and this is crucial, is when you start living on autopilot. Oh, this is a dangerous place to be. You wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, and repeat. Day after day, week after week. You know what I call this? I call this the slow death of dreams. When you can predict every hour of your day, when you haven't been surprised by life in months, when you can't remember the last time you felt truly alive, that's when the alarm bell should be ringing. Let me tell you a story about my friend Mr. Brown. Successful guy, good income, nice family. One day he tells me, "Jim, I can't remember what I did last month." Not because his memory was failing, no, but because every day was exactly the same. Can you imagine that? Living life so routinely that months become indistinguishable. That's not living, folks. The second sign, and this one's subtle but powerful, is when you start making excuses instead of making progress. This is fascinating. You see, excuses are like weeds in the garden of success. They start small, barely noticeable, but before you know it, they've taken over the whole garden. You might say, "Jim, I'll start my business next year when the economy's better." Or I'll go back to school when the kids are older. Or my favorite one, I'll begin that health program when things slow down. Let me tell you something. Things never slow down. Life doesn't work that way. The world keeps spinning, time keeps ticking, and opportunities keep passing by while you're making excuses. You know what's interesting? I've never met a successful person who had a list of excuses. Never. They have a list of goals, a list of achievements, a list of failures they've learned from. But excuses? No, those don't make the cut. The third sign, and this one's particularly important, is when your growth has stopped. Now, pay attention here because this is subtle. You see, in life, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no maintaining. That's a myth. You might think you're maintaining, but you're actually sliding backwards. When was the last time you read a book that challenged your thinking? When did you last learn a new skill? When did you last put yourself in an uncomfortable situation that forced you to grow? If you can't remember, that's a red flag. That's life telling you, it's time for a change. I remember talking to a young man in Chicago, brilliant guy, been in the same position for 7 years. He tells me, "Mr. Rohn, I have 7 years of experience." I said, "No, sir, you have 1 year of experience repeated 7 times. There's a big difference. See, some people stop growing the moment they become comfortable. And comfort, while nice, is often the enemy of progress. The fourth sign is when your dreams start feeling like burdens instead of inspirations. This is fascinating, and it happens so gradually that most people don't even notice it. You see, when you're on the wrong path, even the right dreams feel heavy. You remember when you were younger, how your dreams energized you, how they kept you up at night with excitement, how they made you leap out of bed in the morning? What happened to those dreams? Did they change, or did you change? Did they become impossible, or did you stop believing in possibilities? I'll tell you what happened. Somewhere along the way, you started negotiating with life. You started trading your dreams for what you thought was security. You started settling for less than what you're capable of. And that's when dreams become burdens. When they remind you of what you're not doing instead of inspiring you toward what you could be doing. The fifth sign, and this is perhaps the most important one, is when your challenges no longer match your capabilities. Now, this is crucial to understand. You see, life is designed to be a growth experience. When your challenges don't make you stretch, when they don't make you think, when they don't make you become more than you are, that's a clear sign you're playing too small. You know what's interesting about human potential? Most people use only a fraction of their actual capabilities. They're like a high-performance car driving in the slow lane. They're like an eagle that's decided to walk everywhere. They're living far below their potential, and deep down, they know it. Now, let me expand on something vital here. When you recognize these signs, it's not enough to just acknowledge them. You must take action. And this is where most people fall short. They see the signs, they feel the need for change, but they stay stuck in what I call the comfortable misery. Let's talk about what happens when you ignore these signs. This is fascinating. You see, life has a way of increasing the pressure until you can't ignore it anymore. It's like a pot of water on the stove. You can keep the lid on, but eventually that pressure is going to find a way out. I've seen it happen countless times. People ignore the signs. They push down that feeling that something needs to change, and then, boom, life creates a crisis that forces them to change. Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't it be much better to make changes on your own terms, rather than waiting for life to force your hand? You know what's remarkable about successful people? They don't wait for the crisis. They're proactive. They see the signs early and they take action while others are still making excuses. That's what separates the successful from the average. Let me share something profound with you. Every major breakthrough in your life will come right after you make a big change. Every single one. That's not a coincidence, folks. That's a principle. Change precedes progress. Always has, always will. Now, some of you might be thinking, Jim, I see the signs, but change is scary. And you're right. Change is scary. But you know what's scarier? Regret. Regret is the poison that will eat away at your soul. Regret is looking back at your life and saying, I could have, I should have, I would have. Let me tell you something about fear. Fear is interesting. Most people think fear is a signal to stop, but successful people, they've learned something fascinating. Fear is often a signal to go. When you feel that fear of change, that's often life's way of pointing you in exactly the direction you need to go. You see, everything you want in life is on the other side of fear. Everything. The relationship you want, the career you dream of, the life you envision, it's all waiting for you on the other side of that fear. Here's another crucial point about these signs we've discussed. They often appear simultaneously. They're like a chorus trying to get your attention. And the longer you ignore them, the louder they become. Isn't that fascinating? Let me give you a perfect example. I was working with a gentleman in Seattle, very successful in his field. He had the house, the car, the status, everything society says you should want. But he was experiencing all 5 signs we discussed. He was on autopilot, making excuses. His growth had stopped. His dreams felt like burdens, and his challenges no longer matched his capability. You know what he told me? He said, Jim, I feel like I'm living someone else's life. Now that's a profound statement. Think about that. Living someone else's life. How many of you feel that way? How many of you are living a life that others would approve of, but deep down, you know, it's not really yours? This leads me to an important point about change. You see, change isn't just about doing different things. It's about becoming a different person. The person who can handle the life you want to create. That's where most people miss it. They want different results, but they're not willing to become a different person. Let me share something powerful with you. Every time you make a big change in your life, you're really making 2 changes. First, there's the external change, the new job, the new relationship, the new venture. But there's also an internal change. You become someone new, someone stronger, someone more capable, someone more aligned with their true potential. And here's what's fascinating about this process. The internal change must always precede the external change. Always. You must become the person who can handle the life you want before that life shows up. That's a principle, and it never fails. Now, let me share something profound about timing. People often ask me, Jim, when is the best time to make a big change? And I always tell them the same thing. The best time was yesterday, the second best time is now. Isn't that interesting? We're always waiting for the perfect moment. But here's the truth. There is no perfect moment. You see, life doesn't give you perfect moments. Life gives you opportunities disguised as challenges. And these 5 signs we're discussing, they're not just warning signs, they're opportunities knocking on your door. The question is, will you answer? Let me tell you something fascinating about human nature. Most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. Isn't that interesting? They want overnight success, but they're not willing to put in 5 years of dedicated effort. They want the harvest, but they're not willing to plant the seeds and tend the garden. Here's what's crucial to understand about making big changes. Small changes won't do when big changes are required. You can't solve a big problem with a small solution. That's like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. Won't work. Never has. Never will. Let me give you a formula for making big changes. I call it the 4 E's. Evaluate, elevate, and execute. Write these down, they're important. First, you evaluate. You take a hard, honest look at where you are. No rose-colored glasses, no excuses, just raw truth. Most people never do this. They live in denial, and denial is not just a river in Egypt, folks. It's the biggest obstacle to change. Second, you eliminate. This is crucial. You must eliminate what's not working, what's holding you back, what's keeping you small. And here's what's fascinating. Most people spend their lives adding things to their lives when they should be eliminating things from their lives. Third, you elevate. You raise your standards, your expectations, your associations, your thinking. Remember this, your life will never be better than your standards. Never. If you want an exceptional life, you need exceptional standards. Fourth, you execute. This is where the rubber meets the road. Execution beats excuses every time. And here's what's remarkable. Most people know what to do. They just don't do what they know. Isn't that interesting? Now, let me share something powerful about resistance. When you start making big changes, you'll face resistance. Count on it. Expect it. Plan for it. The resistance might come from others, but the biggest resistance will come from within yourself. You see, your old self will fight to survive. That's natural. Your old habits, your old thinking, your old comfort zones, they'll all fight to keep you where you are. But remember this, everything you want in life is on the other side of that resistance. Let me tell you about something fascinating. I've observed over the years, the bigger the change you need to make, the more resistance you'll face. But here's the key. The amount of resistance you face is often proportional to the importance of the change you need to make. Isn't that interesting? When you start making big changes, some people won't understand. Some might even try to talk you out of it. That's okay. Not everyone is supposed to understand your journey. This is your life we're talking about, not a democracy. You don't need everyone's vote to change your life. Here's another crucial point about making big changes. You must change your environment to support your new direction. You can't become a new person in an old environment. It's like trying to plant new seeds in old soil. Won't work. The environment always wins. Think about this. Your current environment is perfectly designed to produce your current results. If you want different results, you need a different environment. That might mean new friends, new associations, new activities, new influences. Now let me share something powerful about mindset. When making big changes, your mindset isn't just important, it's everything. You see, success leaves clues, and one of the biggest clues I've discovered is that successful people have a different mindset about change. Average people see change as something that happens to them. Successful people see change as something that happens through them. Isn't that fascinating? Same circumstance, different perspective, totally different results. Let me tell you what's interesting about these 5 signs we've discussed. They're actually gifts. Yes, gifts, even when they feel uncomfortable, even when they cause pain, They're gifts. Why? Because they're telling you something important about your life. They're telling you it's time to grow. You know what most people do when they feel uncomfortable? They try to get comfortable again. But comfort is overrated. Comfort is the enemy of achievement. Comfort is what keeps most people small. Remember this, everything you want is just outside your comfort zone. Let me share a principle that changed my life. It's called the law of diminishing intent. It says that the longer you wait to do something you should do now, the greater the odds that you will never actually do it. Isn't that interesting? The longer you wait, the less likely you'll act. That's why when you see these signs, when you feel that urgency for change, you must act immediately. Not next week, not next month, not when the conditions are perfect. Now, the perfect moment is a myth. The right moment is now. Here's something fascinating about transformation. When you make a big change, it affects everything in your life. Everything. Your relationships, your health, your wealth, your thinking, everything shifts. That's because life is not compartmentalized. It's all connected. Let me tell you about what I call the compound effect of change. Small changes compounded over time create massive results. But here's what's interesting. The same is true for staying the same. Small decisions to remain the same compounded over time create massive regrets. You see, every day you're either moving towards your potential or away from it. There is no standing still. Life doesn't work that way. You're either growing or you're dying. You're either advancing or retreating. Which one is it for you? Now, let me share something crucial about decision making. When you're contemplating big changes, you must understand this principle. Decisions have date stamps. Yes, what was right for you a year ago might not be right for you now. What got you here won't get you there. I've observed something fascinating about successful people. They make decisions based on where they want to be, not based on where they are. Average people make decisions based on their current circumstances. Successful people make decisions based on their desired circumstances. Isn't that interesting? Here's another crucial point about making big changes. You must change your story. You see, we all have a story we tell ourselves about who we are, what we're capable of, what's possible for us. And here's what's fascinating. That story will either liberate you or limit you. Most people are living out an old story that no longer serves them. They're still operating from a narrative they created years ago, maybe even decades ago. But here's the truth. You can change your story anytime you choose. Anytime? Let me tell you something powerful about momentum. When you start making big changes, the first steps are always the hardest. Always. It's like pushing a heavy boulder. It takes massive effort to get it moving. But once it starts rolling, it develops its own momentum. That's why you can't judge the validity of a change by how it feels in the beginning. In the beginning, it will feel hard, it will feel uncomfortable, it will feel wrong. That's normal, that's natural. That's how it's supposed to feel. Here's something profound about sustaining change. Most people focus on the action part of change, but they neglect the identity part. You see, the most powerful changes happen when you change who you are, not just what you do. When you change your identity, your actions naturally follow. Let me give you an example. Instead of saying, I'm trying to quit smoking, say, I'm not a smoker. Instead of saying, I'm trying to build a business, say, I'm an entrepreneur. Do you see the difference? One is about doing, the other is about being. And being always trumps doing. Now, let me share with you what I call the 3 circles of change. First circle is awareness, knowing what needs to change. Second circle is acceptance, being willing to make the change. Third circle is action, actually making the change. Most people get stuck in awareness. They know what needs to change, but they never move to acceptance and action. Here's something fascinating about timing and change. The best time to make a change is when you first notice you need to make it. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. It's like picking fruit. There's a perfect moment of ripeness. Wait too long, and the fruit begins to rot. Let me tell you something powerful about commitment. When you truly commit to change, the universe conspires to help you. Doors begin to open, opportunities appear, resources show up. And this is crucial, you must commit first. The commitment comes before the resources, not the other way around. You know what's interesting about these 5 signs we've discussed today? They never appear alone. They're like a symphony playing in harmony, trying to get your attention. The question is, are you listening? Are you paying attention to the music of your life? Remember this? The pain of staying the same must become greater than the pain of change before most people will change. But why wait for that much pain? Why not change when you first see the signs? Why not change on your own terms? Let me share one final principle about change. It's called the principle of seasons. You see, life moves in seasons. There are seasons for planting, seasons for growing, seasons for harvesting, and seasons for resting. The key is knowing what season you're in and acting accordingly. Right now, for many of you, it's a season of change. These 5 signs are telling you that. The question is, will you honor the season? Will you make the changes you know you need to make? Or will you try to harvest in a season meant for planting? Here's my challenge to you today. Don't leave this room the same person who walked in. Make a decision right now to honor these signs. Make a decision to change what needs to be changed. Make a decision to become who you were meant to be. Remember, everything we've discussed today, the autopilot living, the excuses, the stopped growth, the heavy dreams, the mismatched challenges, these are all just symptoms. The real issue is this: are you becoming who you're capable of becoming? Let me leave you with this final thought. Years from now, you will either look back on this moment as the moment you decided to change, or you'll look back on it as another missed opportunity. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your life is speaking to you through these signs. The question is no longer whether you need to make a change. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it today? Because here's the truth, and this is worth writing down. Your future is created by what you do today, not tomorrow. Your life will never change until you change. Your circumstances will never change until you change. Your results will never change until you change. So make the decision, make it now. Not next week, not next month, not next year. Now, because if not now, when? If not you, who? Thank you. And remember, the life you want to live is waiting for you on the other side of change. Go get it. The time is now.